This course is designed to change your life. Hi and welcome. I'm Serafina Marasha Masubo. I'm a demand avoidance soul-based coach, and I'm also somebody who experiences demand avoidance or pervasive drive for autonomy. So, in the tapestry of my life, a profound journey has unfolded where I have been led to merge science and spirituality together. And this course is the result of that. I had such severe demand avoidance that it was difficult for me to go to school, and socializing communication could not find the words to say what I wanted or needed to say, and selective mutism was an option. Selective mutism is often seen in autistic people, individuals on the autistic spectrum, as is demand avoidance. In fact, demand avoidance has many of these similar characteristics. So it's been a lifelong journey for me from my late childhood since I realized that something was off with the levels of anxiety that I was experiencing. And I've used fasting, yoga, movement, meditation, self hypnosis during my childhood through my teenage years. I was on a journey. I was committed. I was driven to find answers, not only for myself, but also for other people, because I did not think that there would be such a thing as anxiety so severe that death itself is better. I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of a life unlived. I'm afraid of having these moments pass me where I'm just in a complete state of hyperarousal and fight, flight, freeze, fawn almost consistently, to the point where I'm not able to finish anything that matters to me. I'm not able to take action based on what I value. And if you are there, you might have just struggled through life up until now, being stuck on this seat. And I call this analogy, the seat analogy, the stress, emotions, anxiety, and trauma seat. So this course, there is the aspect to attachment styles of the avoidment attachment style, whether that's disorganized, dismissive, or fearful avoidant. And there is an aspect of the developmental psychology. So the term demand avoidance comes from pathological demand avoidance, which is Elizabeth Newson's uh, terminology for children who wanted to do something and were not able to. And this goes on for lifelong because it's usually associated with ADHD or autism. And that is a really clear distinction. They want to, they're not able to. They have so much anxiety, so much fear that they're not able to do anything about it. So, from that perspective, there is a way to distinguish it. And I don't want to talk a lot of theory because I'm going to dive straight into what we're going to do on this course to get you to first assess demand and avoidance decisively so that you can go beyond demand avoidance to autonomous soul bliss. So, lesson one, assessing demand avoidance and finding where you are on your seat. The main idea behind this is to give us a definition of demand and avoidance that helps us to move out of it. So I'm going to put some definitions out there for demand. Demand is anything that requires you to give a response, usually on the spot, because it's like something that is not in a state of inertia, something that is not something that is can be perceived as a threat, but it can also be a good thing. And sometimes positive emotions take us out of our seat. You know, they put us in this stress, emotional anxiety, and trauma mode, as well as negative emotions. So demand is anything that requires, I would say, an innovative on the spot response. Avoidance is anything that brings us into a state of leaving the here and now, the present moment, and wanting to be somewhere else, which I describe as a fantasy bond. And this course focuses heavily on the physical and emotional aspects of the seat, the stress, emotions, anxiety, and trauma response. So I'm going to keep all these lessons in under 10 minutes. The first few minutes, I'll just be introducing myself. I'm just going to give a bit of housekeeping and orientation so that you can get the most from this video and the next video. And I will give some practical definitions. I'm not going to go too much into theory because there's a lot of theory you can find out there on the internet. And I will then give questions for you to answer, like journaling practices. These are action items for you to take on board to get results straight away. So I'm going to describe SEAT and then we're going to move into the action items. So SEAT, stress, anxiety, emotions, and trauma, the other way around, stress, emotions. SE, so stress for S, E for emotions, anxiety A, and trauma for T. Physically and emotionally, stress, hyperarousal. A lot of times we think about nervous system regulation, and stress and emotions and anxiety and trauma are more than a nervous system story. They are an immune system story. They are a lymphatic system story. They are a digestive system story. They are a full body, all systems story. So it's a whole system, and I apply it through the soul bodies or energetic bodies, where I work on the physical, emotional, mental, emotional, psychological, emotional, psyche, emotional, and spiritual, emotional. And through these 5 layers of the soul bodies, you're able to kind of address stress from its core. So this course is going to cover the physical and emotional. And stress, hyperarousal, triggers fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, as I mentioned. These do something very interesting to the way we perceive our emotions and our reality. So we dissociate. We sometimes engage in fantasy, and sometimes there is a excess of trying to make this fantasy come out here. It's still not matching up with what is actually reality. We're trying to control by escaping into fantasy or trying to make a fantasy become real. And it's a defense mechanism. Most of the times, we're not even aware that we're doing it because of executive functioning issues. And first thing that we need to do, the first thing I did, and most people will, when you go through the process of trying to figure out how to integrate, a lot of times they say like there's an association between chronic post-traumatic stress disorder or CPTSD with autism and other developmental disorder. You are stuck developmentally on a seat, right? There's some developmental challenges which manifest as behavioral challenges, emotional challenges, social challenges, communication challenges, organizational challenges. However they manifest, it can be alexithymia, which is very common for autistic and ADHD people. It can be rejection sensitivity disorder, also common for autistic and ADHD people. It can be autistic inertia. It could be, as I mentioned, selective mutism. There are so many ways that it manifests, but I find that they have a dimension with demand avoidance where the ability to respond to it, the demand is anything that requires a response is being avoided. It's being replaced or wanting to be replaced with a fantasy because it's too painful. And this comes to the point of our first question. So how does it feel physically in your body? Oftentimes when there's demand, you feel pain. But pain is not enough of a describer to let you to work with it because pain is pain. And it only hurts until it stops, right? However, we have no control over when it stops, and this makes us panic. And that panic leads to the anxiety. So this emotion of fear, of the pain, leading to anxiety, leads to us experiencing that experience as a traumatic experience when it could have been a positive experience, it could have been a negative experience, it could have been a neutral experience. But we have this hyperloop of hyperarousal that causes this to happen. So the first question, I'm going to fire the questions and we're going to go to the next lesson in the course, is how do you feel physically in your body? If it's pain, where do you feel it? For example, for me, I feel like there's a knife going in through my chest. I feel like there is an axe going in through my head. I feel like I'm cut off from the bottom part of my body. There are so many ways I could describe this. There were no limits. And, aim for maybe a paragraph of 5 sentences or so, just describing how it feels in your body. It could be like somebody's poking an eye, like a nail is driving through your eye. This is like your place to express what happens for you, where it's difficult for you to tell anybody else what's happening. The next question is, how do you feel emotionally? And this can be positive or negative emotion when you think about the demand and when you're avoiding it. So this could be like, I feel frozen. Like, it doesn't have to be like any descriptive word. If you need more pointers, there'll be some notes coming up in a description section for this lesson. And they will break down everything that you need to kind of be able to phrase this question better. This video is just to guide you so that you can first begin to assess, how does it feel physically in my body when I'm avoiding demand, and how does it feel emotionally for me? So that's it for this video. Yours soulfully, Serafina.